You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Allan Weitz.
Greetings and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. Today we are joined by celebrity portraitist Chris Buck. Just a few of the folks Chris has photographed, our last three presidents, including the current occupier of the office, Mel Brooks, Stephen King, Philip Johnson, Willie Nelson, Bjork, Leonard Cohen, and the list goes on and on. Fortunately, most of these images you can find in Chris's latest book, Uneasy, which is a rather big book, more than the greatest hits. It's a compendium of 30 years of incredible portraiture, and in one glance at his work, you'll know why it's called Uneasy. As he has said, he looks for a mix of vulgar and beautiful. Whether meticulously devised or pulled off in under 5 minutes, he has an ability to find an awkward humor and an insight into his subject's personality in almost all of his portraits. We'll tell you how you can get a copy of his incredible book at the end of the show, but in the meantime, welcome Chris Buck.
Glad to be here.
Have you ever asked anybody to smile for a picture?
You know, I'm ultimately a commercial photographer, so if part of the ask is some smiling pictures, then you will get your smiling pictures. I mean, it's generally not where I like to live, but it's, you know, if a smiling picture, my picture of Obama, he's got like a little hint of a smile. I mean, there can be something going on there. It's not my default position, but I will go there if need be.
You just mentioned one particular photograph that we really like and has an interesting story. You only had a few minutes with him, and he sat down, and you were trying to get him to play along to your thing, and one of the things you wanted to do was have him turn his head aside and then look back at you with his eyes, and he refused to, but you got it anyway, and there's a little bit of a smirk on his face, and you caught him in a way that, obviously, from what you said in the book, he didn't really particularly care for.
Well,
it's a great picture.
Well, I don't know if he cared for it or not. What happened was I had him in a kind of classic 3/4, looking away from camera, you know, kind of super dignified. I said, "Sir, hold your head position, but look with your eyes to camera." And he looked at me and said, "I don't do that." And I snapped the picture.
And you got it.
Now, the thing is that, you know, I mean, he had that look. I mean, you know, I just sort of instinctively knew to shoot. I mean, I had to learn to do that, but it's become instinct to shoot even when people say no, or if the environment says no, but the visual says yes, you go yes.
And are you completely comfortable after that? After you took that moment?
Yeah, because what's he gonna do? Open the back of the camera? I mean, you know.
Okay.
I mean, the thing about it is,
I mean, he knew you took it, right? He heard it.
And the thing about it is that when you're shooting in any situation, you're just shooting lots of pictures and you're doing things, and you know he knows that. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not like it was a total setup. Like on some level, it was instinctual. I mean, in some ways, I was kind of surprised to find it when I looked in the computer.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, there's definitely a sense of I'd done other political shoots where I was too easy on people, and I learned to become more focused on why I'm there, what I'm there to do, rather than on, you know, I like to say I'm there for the pictures. I'm not there for a nice experience or for history. I'm there for getting the best picture possible. When you're making a portrait with someone, you're kind of entering into a relationship for those few minutes, and you need to tease something out of them, and they know that, and that's why they're there too. And either they don't want to give it or they don't know how to give it, but they know they need to submit to the process in some way for it to happen. And they can't do it on their own. They need the portraitist or whoever, the photographer, to help pull it out. So they kind of go along for the ride. To some extent, it's sleight of hand. To some extent, it's manipulation. But we're all there for the same reason. And I hope they like the picture. If they don't like it, you know, I'm okay with it. But I'm really there. I'm there for my audience. I'm there for me and my client. But the fact is that, you know, getting a strong, revealing portrait is something that people can't do for themselves. They need someone else to kind of nudge them into that position so it happens.
Now, but you go into your shoots prepared with ideas ahead of time. And has there been moments where in the middle of the shoot you realize, you know what, this is not the right attitude. I brought a
Totally.
different attitude. Do I needed to? This person is responding in a
But that's
way.
why you go in with so many ideas. And one of the things I do is I go in with ideas ranging from, and obviously a lot of it has to do with conversations with the client, what their needs and priorities are. But in terms of, the actual dealing on set, I'm trying to prepare ideas ranging from they're not going to do anything. So I just want something that's going to be like beautifully lit, great looking background, so they can just sit there and it'll still look great. Ranging from that to this person clearly is open for anything and nothing's off the table. And, almost worse is when it's a nothing off the table, like no holds barred day, and I'm not ready.
Yeah.
And it's happened a couple of times where people like Casey Affleck was like, he'll do it. He would have done anything. I mean, luckily we were shooting at my apartment, so we could do all kinds of crazy stuff.
And what about dealing with, their people? Because I'm sure many times you'll get a long list of things that they say they won't or will do. And then perhaps you go into the shoot and you find the exact opposite.
Let me give you kind of the lay of the land of how a shoot typically happens with a celebrity for a magazine. So I'll get my assignment. They'll give me a general idea of what their viewpoint is or what they want to get out of it, meaning the client. And then I'll write down ideas. I'll fold them in with the client's ideas. I'll present ideas back to them. Here's, say, 6 ideas of things. And they're, some are more fleshed out than others, but I'll send all the ideas in. And then what we'll do is those ideas, let's say 3 of them involve a specific prop or a costume or something that we need to rent or is obviously really thought out. We need to bring that to the subject's publicist because we can't pretend that we, found a giant applause sign on the way to the shoot. Like we need to clear that by them because they could just be like, what's up here, Things that are more simple, just like a little gesture thing or like, I want you to sit on the floor. Something that can look pretty cool and weird and awesome, but I can easily justify it as I thought of that just now, I might write that down beforehand. I won't even pass that by the client because there's no need to, right? So in a way, there's 3 tiers of ideas. Ideas that are just for me and I don't even tell my client. Ideas that I tell the client and we don't pass them on to the subject. And then ideas that we go all the way through to the subject or their people so they know what to expect. And they know perfectly well that's how it goes. And it all works out. It works fine.
But you haven't found the situation. I'm sure you have, but
Well,
maybe you can
if they don't
example.
like an idea, they'll say no, right? And even too on set, the ideas that are just my ideas, I'll say, hey, I got this idea. Can you do this? And sometimes they'll try it and then not really do it. Sometimes they'll just say no. Sometimes they'll do it and love it. So, I mean, the thing about it is volume. Have lots of ideas, both in preparing and on set. Even when I get to set, I might come in with a dozen ideas of things we might do, but I might add another half dozen just based on my mood or the set or whatever's around, or even something the subject says, and we're like, hey, that's cool, let's do that.
But if they had said, if the people, the handlers, the publicists had said no, you leave it at that? Is it done deal? Or you might then say, you know what, we've had a great relationship, and I had this idea that your people said no to.
There's no that means like this is never going to happen, and there's no that means like talk me into it.
Yeah.
And seduce me. It's a seduction, and I think that
that's a good analogy. It is in many senses.
You can sense when there's an openness when maybe might be turned into yes, and there's a sense of when no means like I probably shouldn't even have brought it up.
Yeah.
How often do you run into like just totally sealed veneers that you can't crack through at all, and they're not giving you anything? Does that happen often to you?
It can. It's very, very rare. I'll tell you why. Because people are there for a reason. They're there to have their picture made. Now, the fact is, they might be those people who you can only make a visual shot like nice lighting and nice background. That's fine. They might be those people. I'm literally just going to sit here. I'm just going to stand here and I'm going to smile or I'm going to look this way. And that's all they're going to give you. But that's fine. I think that's totally within the contract of what I expect from people. There are some people who... I did a shoot recently that the person, I'm not going to say who it was.
You can. It's just between us.
Yeah, I know.
Nothing goes through past these walls.
Yeah. Occasionally you come across someone who clearly shouldn't have said yes to the photo shoot because they just don't want to do a shoot at all. And those are the ones who, the ones that are, you can't get anything because nothing is good enough for them. Nothing is, for whatever reason, it's not. They just don't want to be there, and they don't want to give you the time. They won't. All your ideas don't work for them for whatever reason. They said yes to being photographed, and they just don't want to be photographed.
Well, they had an obligation. Doesn't mean they want to be there. I guess. It could be often
they had an
the case.
obligation, but look, probably a full third of the people I photograph vocalize that they don't like having their picture taken, and yet you make it happen. They make it happen. I make it happen.
I think a lot of people who say that thing are basically saying, "Help me through this. Hold my hand through this." I found that myself. There's some people I've started photographing, and I don't want to be anything, but they're really just looking for you to reach out and hold their hand a little bit so you could talk them through it, and then they walk out happy.
I never thought about that, and it's a good point. I don't know if I really. I think I tend to kind of acknowledge when they say things like that, and then I put it out of my mind because I can't be thinking about.
No, you got a job to do.
Yeah,
you have a purpose to be there,
right?
And so do they. The idea is to get them to go along with your purpose.
Sure, but I don't know. It's a kind of. I think when you have a certain amount of experience, you learn that people will say things like that, and then they'll give you amazing pictures. So you just never know, and you have to kind of. It's a lot of filtering out. A lot of the noise, whether it's from a publicist or even the client, a wardrobe person, and you need to filter out like what's meaningful and is going to make the picture better, and what's not meaningful, and I just tuck it back there in the not important section.
Now, as a photographer, your approach is yes, I'm being paid to shoot this portrait right here, but at the end of the day, I'm here because I like having fun with the camera and I like playing with people.
Frankly, I don't have fun on set. Like when I hear photographers talk about like having fun, I'm like. That's alien to me. Like
I get that it's a job. You're working.
My pictures feel fun, and I'm glad people experience them as being playful or sometimes funny, and that's great. That is certainly it's part of what I do. But I'm working, and frankly, the more anxious and stressed I am, the better my work is.
Oh, okay,
so
interesting. Okay,
being relaxed and having fun are the enemy of good Chris Buck pictures.
That's kind of one of the areas I wanted to go to because, as you said, your photos are often considered funny, awkwardly funny, whatever you want to call it. Do you never laugh on set? I mean, well, you may laugh, but the idea is not to make yourself laugh. And how about in the edit, though? How about when you're looking at them again and you go, I mean, is there anything about you that says, oh, I laughed the most looking at this photo, therefore it's the best? I mean, is there anything about this idea of humor that translates through the whole process from photographer to subject or subject photographer audience?
I don't know. I mean, one thing I've realized from photographing a lot of comedians is that I think what happened with me is that photo editors and art directors would see that my pictures had humor to them, so they hired me to photograph comedians. It wasn't like I was known for shooting comedians early on. Like, I looked through the book. The first comedian I shot in the book, I think, might be Adam Sandler in '93. And I started shooting professionally in '88. So that's, 5 years in. So it's not like I really made my name shooting comedians. But I think somehow someone put two and two together, like funny pictures, let's have them shoot comedians. And it works out great because I generally shoot them with an approach of, I want to make something really weird and surreal and dark. And comedians love most of those things. Most of them are just happy to meet you and make weird, surreal pictures. Like I think I'm very influenced by Monty Python and that kind of era of comedy, which is, kind of a little more subtle, British, dry, weird. Some things aren't even really that funny. And so I think if I aim for that and then I'm working with someone who actually is funny, oftentimes their performance will will kind of elevate it and make it a little bit sharper and better. And I think also in a weird way, even though I tend to think of my taste or my take being dark, I've kind of realized I kind of execute with a light touch. So I think that's a big part of my style that people perceive is that I'm interested in sort of serious themes, but I tend to execute with an inviting way that is actually going to my palette and my tones, and just I think the playfulness that is in there invite people into the pictures and want them to enjoy them, or it's not like super mysterious and daunting and scary. So in a way, I'm probably able to get away with more in my pictures because of the delivery, and frankly, it's probably the reason why I have an advertising career at all. Advertising is a funny business.
That's your style. Well, no, look, there are 10,000 million photographers out there. You have a style that's recognizable, and people seek you for a reason, and that alone is a major accomplishment in this day and age.
Well, I think that be able to make pictures that are both funny and serious at the same time. Maybe there's 4 people who can do that in this country.
It's a very, very narrow line that you're walking there. Absolutely.
And I'm not going to tell the other 3 because they want to call me.
One of the things I read is that, when you started off, technically you weren't the best. And you've since learned about lighting and actually where to put the lights, not just to plug them in and turn them on, but actually where to put them. And you're also not a gearhead per se, from what I understand. What is your basic travel system? Somebody calls you up now and they say, we need to do a portrait, doesn't matter who. What are the basic tools that you're taking, the minimal amount that you're going to take to get that shot?
Well, there's really a range. I mean, let me give you a little history to give some context. So you're right. Like early on, I was not particularly technical minded. In fact, if I'd known how technical photography was, I probably wouldn't have gone into it. It's just not where my strength was. And my father worked for Kodak, so photography and cameras were something like easy and familiar, and I was comfortable with them. And not that I shot a lot, but they were just around, and I went to Kodak lots of times as a kid. So, what photography was and what it was about.
It was part of your experience.
Yeah, I mean, I like to say photo flow, flowed through my veins, And so so that part made it easy. And in a way too, like, my first camera I had was a Canon, I don't know what it was, AF something. And it was all automatic, it had an all automatic option. So that's how I started shooting. I just shot all in automatic. And then as I got pictures back and I found like, if there's strong backlighting, it's going to be too dark. So I need to figure out how to do it. And maybe I moved to aperture priority after that or something. And so that's how I learned to shoot. And I, for the first like 10 years, my best pictures were all available light because I could see it and I could see, and I can, of course, at that point I'm shooting all manual on the camera itself. So I know what I'm doing, but at a certain point I need to start making more money. So I need to I need to light. So I'm shooting for business magazines. I'm having to light. I bought a Dynalite set shortly after I moved to New York. And it was, 1,000, whatever.
1,000 watts. I remember those little gray packs.
Yeah, they're great.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always been an on-location photographer. And so, I shoot in studios, of course, but it's not really my mainstay. And I like the idea of shooting out in the world. So I just take that pack and I'd have, my initial kit was literally like a camera bag with a camera, an extra lens, and a flash. And then later I added a tripod. And over time I built my kit over, just organically. It never was like, I'm making a list of what I want. And, it would always be organic. And so now my basic kit, I guess I have 2 modes. One is super light. For doing my personal work, I take camera, tripod, reflector, a couple Apple boxes, and I always shoot tethered to laptop. So I bring one person with me, usually my intern, and they run the laptop. So my intern is my tech. So when digital techs give me a hard time, I just tell them my intern does that. In fact, my 7-year-old daughter did digital teching for me one day when a shoot got moved to a weekend, and she did the teching, and she did a great job. The highlights were a little blown out for some shots. Otherwise, the focus was bang on. And so that's my very minimal kit for personal work, where I'm just chasing the light, as it were.
So you always shoot tethered then?
Yes.
Interesting.
What camera?
I shoot with a Hasselblad H4X with a P65 back.
Mm-hmm.
And I shoot with a normal lens, and then also I've got a 50 wide too.
Mm-hmm.
And then my more elaborate setup, I have lights, which I bought Pro Photos probably in the late 90s. And then I've had a full Pro Photo set. So it's 3 packs, 4 heads, and then I added a 7B a couple of years later. So I've got three 7As and then one 7B. And a bunch of light boxes for it, mostly small sources. I like extra small and extra, extra small. I made a compromise and bought a medium strip a few years ago. And, you know.
So you're basically conservative. I mean, it sounds like a lot of stuff, but for a location, it's actually conservative. I mean,
well, it's funny. I go to set and they're like, this is so much stuff. You know, I go to someone's office or whatever, and I'm like, you have no idea. This is nothing.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
But we use almost everything when we shoot. I mean, because inevitably when I do a shoot, I might do 4 setups, right? From all those ideas I have, I cut down to 4 setups. So we might do 2 that are lit and 2 that are available light. So I still love available light, but it also gives me a way to quickly pivot to the next setup and not be throwing off the rhythm of the shoot.
Safe to assume that you prefer digital over film. I mean, you started in film, you went to digital.
Yes,
I imagine the immediacy of digital is more important to you right now, or no?
It was a big transition for me, and it was an awkward and difficult transition to go from film to digital. I was really dedicated to film. In fact, for a while, I was actually shooting transparency again. I went back to shooting transparency because I thought the ultimate would be shoot film, scan it positive to positive, and then I have a beautiful, you know, perfectly exposed transparency, scan to a positive, and then bam, do my Photoshop, whatever work I need to do, either cleanup or compositing or whatever I do, and then it'd be like the best of both worlds. I shoot transparency. My clients are like, "What is this weird thing?" You know, and so
it's amazing how that's flipped.
I know, right? But it was the big change came when I started to shoot medium format in digital. So when I was shooting the DSLRs, I did not like it. I didn't like the way the tones flowed and the files weren't big enough. Because I try making a big print, you know, 20 by 24, and I'm cropping like a third of the frame out, and suddenly I'm just holding sharpness, and I was like, this is not good. So I went to medium format, and it's like shooting old school Kodachrome. It's like the tones are amazing, the color is amazing, you know, the details insane, like, it's actually influenced the way I shoot too, like, which is great. It's actually influenced my style. I don't know, just the palette of it. You know, I'm seeing color differently, and in a way, because shooting film, because I used to shoot film medium format, so I shot Hasselblad, you know, square format through most of the 90s, and then by the end of the 90s, I was shooting Mamiya 6.7, RZ 6.7. I shot that for, you know, 12, 14 years, but I'd shoot all different films, right? So you know, I like available lights. I'm shooting, you know, 400 and 800, and I'm shooting, you know, Ilford 3200 for black and white and pushing it. But now I'm shooting a camera that I really can't go past 100 ASA because the shadows get really kind of weird. So it's fine. So I shoot everything at 100 ASA. So it's a different kind of palette than shooting like, you know, Ilford 3200.
When we just sat down, you talked you mentioned that everything's on the record.
Yes.
And like,
I won't necessarily answer every question. You can ask any question.
Well, I was actually referring more to your sets. I assume that as soon as someone walks in the door, everything's fair game. And I was thinking of a picture, and this is not, you didn't catch anybody in a bad moment, but there's a photo of Philip Seymour Hoffman and John C. Reilly, where they're exiting or entering the frame. Was that something that you caught when they were goofing around on themselves, or is that something that you had planned and you particularly stationed them to the to the right side of the frame?
Well, that shot was, you know, it was within the shoot. I mean, they were horsing around. They're doing a play together on Broadway. And I shot Philip Seymour Hoffman a year before, and he loved the session. And so he knew who I was and was happy to be with me and was comfortable. They were literally bouncing off each other the whole time, and were open to doing all kinds of weird, crazy stuff. I mean, mostly energetic stuff, nothing too weird. Just they're just energetic, and they're happy to be working together, and they're comfortable being with me. And I asked them to do that. Like, it's belly bucking, you know, where two guys' bellies bounce off each other. And I asked them to do that, and they did it. And that's what that shot is.
And the fact that I know that there's, you know, you don't necessarily adhere to keeping people right in the frame all the time. Was that intentional in that case, or just that's what they bounced into? Yeah.
It was in some way. I mean, also they're moving pretty fast the whole time, and it was shot with strobes, so I could kind of move with them and you know, capture everything. I mean, to some extent, I was influenced by people like Avedon who would crop people almost entirely. He'd almost have like a third of them in the frame, and the other half would be like whiteness. So I think it was a bit of an influence of that kind of thing.
I read once where you had said that when you were young, it was more about what you don't like as opposed to who you're influenced by and trying to avoid all the stuff that you didn't like. But there is this Elvis Costello photo, and I've heard you mention Irving Penn before, and Elvis Costello in this image is into the corner, the way that Irving Penn did in his early set of, was that anything intentional or totally?
Absolutely. Like, I was obsessed with Penn.
Oh,
I mean, especially in my early days. And it was definitely an homage to Penn.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's, I don't mind, doing stuff like that. It's probably because of the predilection that I have and others have to be influenced by those you respect and those you're excited by, that I try to have a mindset to not be like that. That I think, and here's my philosophy on this: when you're making photographs that are deeply influenced by those whose work you like, you're going to make a kind of a gentler version of what they've done, most likely. Whereas if you're looking at what's existing in the realm of, whatever genre you're working in, let's say portraits in my world, if I look at what's going on in portraits and think, they're all getting it wrong, I'm going to show them how to get it right. Well, that's in a way forcing me to have a vision to do something new, to do something like, where's portraiture meant to be going? What should portraiture be? So instead of, by implication, it's saying it hasn't done it yet. So, what should a portrait be? What would be the ultimate way to make portraits? So it's inviting me to try to fill that space, which is obviously difficult, but it's exactly what we should be doing.
Yeah, and that leads to another point that you made also about discouraging people from assisting, and I guess just venturing out on your own and doing your own thing, right?
Oh, that's one of my favorite topics, is discouraging people from assisting. I don't talk about it too much with my assistants, because
of course.
they're really good. I need them.
Do you enjoy your time editing and in front of the computer and working on the images after the fact? And would you consider that you turn in a lot of photos or a small amount of photos when the time comes?
So, yeah, I mean, in a way, going through the photographs afterwards is the easy part. It's done. Whatever's done is done. And, you're doing your cleanup or your fix up or whatever, but you basically, whatever you shot, you have to work with. So for better or for worse, it's what you have. I'll tell you something my mentor and professor did with me. His name was Dave Heath. He was a street photographer in New York in the late 50s, early 60s. And he was my professor in Toronto. And he was visiting New York one time, and we had lunch, and he said, maybe I was discussing some issues I was having with my work or moving forward. He said, you should do a photo diary. And what the photo diary was that when I come back from every shoot, I break out the book and I write down, just write the date, the name of the subject, and I write down everything that went wrong. And it was an amazing thing. I did it for about a year and a half. And it was so valuable, because when you come home from a shoot, especially now with digital, you open your computer and you start going through and you start, starring the ones you like and all that. And you're not thinking about what happened on the shoot. You're focusing on moving forward. And you're also basically being in denial about whatever you did wrong. And whereas doing the photo diary forced me to sit down and write down technical problems, issues with relationships with the subjects, relationship with my assistant, I've gone back and read them, and I mean, there's stuff like long, and I'll usually, it's like me writing about what an idiot I was for, I was 20 minutes late, and I'd be like, gotta go earlier. So this time I'm going an hour early. Well, nowadays I arrive 3.5 hours early, if they'll let me. And, it's these things where you learn these lessons, and one of the ways I learned was really by writing things down.
Do you keep your edits tight?
I don't know. I feel like I try to be tight, but it's...
If anything, you're doing your client a favor in many cases, not all cases, to try to keep it tight, because they got all this to go through.
Here's the way it goes. If it shoots really good, I give them a tighter edit. Let's say 8 frames. If it shoots really bad, I give them a tight edit, because it's not that much to give them. If it shoots like good is totally fine.
Let me guess.
Yeah, like
But doesn't
somewhere around between 12 and 20.
But if you know that there was the one shot, and for you there's no other,
Doesn't matter. I don't care.
and doesn't it kill you if they choose something else?
No,
You
that's
don't
why I
care.
do the book. The thing about it is, people will say to me, "Oh, this book, is this, a lot of your outtakes?" I was like, "No, they ran the outtake. This is the picture."
And I read that you had said that there's in most cases there is a favorite that doesn't make it in there. And off the top of your head, is there any example of one of your more well-known photos that
Okay.
you would have
I
chosen
just
a
had a
second?
story printed today, and I was shocked at the picture they ran.
Yeah.
It's an interview with the great photographer James Hamilton, and there's a shot I think was one of my best pictures of last year, and they didn't even use it. So I'll be emailing him after that.
Good. Okay.
But
Now,
whatever.
did they not use it because it didn't fit the layout, or is it just their personal take of which the best picture is? Because that's a big influence. Is it going vertical, horizontal? What's the text like? There's a lot of other variables.
Are you making excuses for my client?
They told me to gently bring it up. They said just ease it into the
He slipped
conversation.
the 20 to you.
10.
Sure.
They only gave me 10.
I think, I don't know. I mean, whatever. I mean, obviously, that's the thing is, you can't move into this area. You can't be a commercial photographer and be proud in that sense. That's why you do. That's why you put what you want on your website or when you do a book.
And
Bottom
is
line
something
is
you
they're
learned over time?
paying you to deliver a product, and if your client is happy with the product, you've done your job.
Well, I want to get hired next time. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
thing is that I think I'll often tell them, like, I'll give them the, whatever, 16 pictures, and I'll say, these 3 are my favorites.
Yeah.
And they can choose them or not choose them. Like, the main thing I want them to do is hire me again.
Yeah, as long as they're happy. You could be happy, and
Exactly.
you could be thrilled. If they're not thrilled, it's useless.
Totally.
Jumping back to your diary, which I'm assuming you're not keeping any longer necessarily.
No, I probably should. But no.
Would you say, is there an unset behavior that you learned to stop doing, or something that you would say is your worst quality on set? Or
One thing, I feel like I am very anxious, and I mentioned I perform best at a certain stress level. But when I talk to my team, and maybe they're just being nice to me, but they'll, I'll be like, "Oh my God, that was so hard and so stressful." They're like, "Oh, you seem totally calm."
Yeah.
And so I think that maybe just as from experience, I don't know. I mean, I think probably about 10 years in, 15 years in, I stopped freaking out before every shoot. And obviously I was fine when I shot, but there's a certain level of like anxiety of not being able to sleep and all that. At a certain point I could do it. And, I'd go, I photographed, Tom Hanks recently, and it was, I was very aware it was a big deal, but you do enough A-list people and it just becomes under your skin and becomes part of what you do.
After a while, they become people again.
No, I wouldn't go that far.
Well, some of them do.
I mean, Tom was great, but I'm just saying that dealing with Tom Hanks is not that different than photographing a regular person for a personal series in some level of just dealing with them. I know how to deal with things professionally. I know I have a sense whether I'm right or wrong, and it's different than other people probably, but when to push it and when to be quiet, when to make conversation, when to,
are you working on a personal series now?
You see, I'm going there. Like I'm hinting. I want you to ask me about it. I'm halfway through a project where I'm photographing exotic dancers, boyfriends, and husbands.
Nice.
I've been doing this.
Husbands and boyfriends of exotic dancers.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Is that not what I said?
Well, you said exotic dances, husbands and boyfriends. It could be exotic people who are married and people who are boyfriends. So
Okay.
but they are husbands
It's
and
the
boyfriends
husbands-
of.
exactly.
There you go. All right. Yes.
In the locale of where the women work?
Well, I
assuming they're
generally
women?
shoot them at their homes. I've tried to shoot them in some clubs if I could, but getting into a club to shoot is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
That's touchy.
A couple of times, a few of the men I've photographed. So it's all men. Well, it's actually some women as well. So basically, let me rephrase this. It's the husbands and boyfriends and girlfriends of exotic dancers. So it's female dancers and it's their partners.
Right.
Where's
And-
the seed from that? What got that into you? It's a great topic, but what made you go, aha, I think I found something?
I think I was sitting in a strip club and I was bored. And, like I'm sipping a soda water with a lime in it. And, I'm driving, so I'm not drinking anything. And it's like the middle of the day. I find strip clubs fascinating, and so especially when they're quiet. And so I was sitting there and I was bored. And I was trying to think of an idea for a photo series, and one does this, and I always write things down. And frankly, it kind of sat around for a couple of years before I kind of warmed up to it. It was just one of many, dozens of ideas I write down for projects. And at some point, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to try shooting this." And yeah, I'm now halfway through.
And are the dancers in frame also, or not necessarily?
The emphasis is certainly on the partner. But if the dancer's around and they want to be part of it, then I'm happy to do some pictures with them. But I do have to be careful because dancers, they're photographed a lot already. It's so much. It's a big cultural thing already, and they're performers. So there's a way in which they upstage their partners pretty fast. Right. So I have to be careful because the project has to stay largely focused on the partners.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm thinking about what you're saying, but if the partner is not there, if the dancer is not there, you have to have other visual references. If you're just photographing, say, the boyfriend or the husband, is there other visual tie-ins?
Well, I'm photographing them. It's for a book and a show. So the
context is set. So
the context will be clear when you're there.
Okay.
And the series is called Gentleman's Club.
Perfect. Very good.
I mean, once I came up with the idea, I'm like, okay, now I have to do this. I mean, just for the name alone.
Yeah, you're locked now. Yeah. You can't let that name go.
It sounds like a project that would be served by audio and interviews.
So I am interviewing them.
Yeah. Okay.
Thankfully, I had the idea to interview them from the beginning. The first guy I interviewed was amazing. He worked at the club. I think he was like a manager or something. And so he was talking about what happens behind the scenes, and I was like, "Wow, this is amazing!" So I was so glad I recorded it. The intention initially was to have just one pull quote or whatever from each guy. But the first interview was so great, I was like, okay, I'm going to interview them all. And also, too, finding them is so difficult that initially I was going to do just one portrait of each, like a single portrait. But then I was like, I need to run at least 2, maybe 3 pictures of each, because to get enough for a book is going to take me like 10 years. So I'm aiming to shoot 50. So, with 2 or 3 pictures of each and a proper Q&A, it should be a nicely fleshed out book. And I'm shooting all over North America. So I've done Toronto, New York, Tampa, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, Rochester, New York. A little accent at the end for Rochester.
Shout out to Rochester.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, and we come back more with Chris Buck and his book, Uneasy. Stay tuned.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of the B&H Photography Podcast. Send us a tweet at BHPhotoVideo, #BHPhotoPodcast.
Okay, we are back. During our break, the topic of Alfred Hitchcock came up. Can you elaborate on that? John was a little bit interested, and we're actually both interested.
Well, I'm a pop culture fan, and you go into the history of film, and he's a fascinating director. I think, maybe I like him as a kind of like a role model in that, during his time when he was making his work, he was not a respected director. He wasn't like Orson Welles or something where he was considered like an auteur. It was only later, of course, when the French New Wave directors like Truffaut were given him respect that he was then regarded as an artist the way we do now. I think I hope to make my work, even though it's in a pop culture realm, I hope to make it valuable and have some richness and depth in the way that Hitchcock, I think, did so well. I think the other thing, too, is that one of the things that makes Hitchcock's work so great is subtext. I think it's he kind of put things in there that weren't really the center point of the movie, but they are little weird sexual things of his or whatever that would be this kind of underlying thing that would exist in the film that obviously these French New Wave directors picked up on, and is now a big part of the narrative of his story, of Hitchcock's. And I try to do that. We'll see how successful I am. Ask historians in 100 years. But I hope to do that. We'll see.
Because there's a lot of quirkiness that he does, a lot of little Easter eggs he sneaks into his films. And I get that from a lot of your stuff, too. There's a lot of playfulness and
there's a way in which his films are about the feeling and about he talks a lot about the MacGuffin, which is the the factual plot line, the kind of the solving of the mystery, and how that's not that important. Like you watch North by Northwest, which is one of my favorite films by him, and it's really like the actual plot, like what does, something with spies and microfilm and it's hidden in something. In the end, you don't care. Like that's the thing that's causing the chase and all that, but it's not really, solving the mystery is not really the point of the film. And I think that even though it wasn't a specific influence on me, I'm realizing how, like, I often have ideas in my pictures and they're conceptual, but they're not, if you look at it, you're like, there's something going on here, but I don't know exactly what he's getting at. But it's interesting. I kind of, it's like you're stepping into the narrative that you missed the first part, but we're in the middle of a narrative and it's you don't know the ending and you don't know the beginning, but there's something that sort of draws you in because it's sort of, you're in part of a story.
2 questions. The first one's a shorter one, and I was meant to ask it before, and it's just as relevant now. Do you work with a set group of people? Do you have full-time assistants or whatever, or do you put together an ensemble every time an assignment comes up based on the needs and where you're shooting?
I guess it's kind of a mix of the two, but probably more close to the second. I mean, if I can work with there's people I meet and they're awesome, and if I can get them on my team regularly, I will. I don't have any staff, I don't have
But you do have regulars that
I have regular first assistants in New York and LA, but I don't take people from New York to LA because there's great people in LA and I just try to get them on board. There's certainly I love props. So prop stylists, they're top of my list. If I can get the prop stylist I want, who has a similar aesthetic to me, where there's more of a shorthand, but there's also an aspect of they're bringing something to the table that I wouldn't even think of, but is in line with my taste, that's amazing. That said, I'm used to working from a place where there's not enough money or resources or whatever. It's so much a part of how I started and how things go half the time. My sets can be me and my intern, or it can be 30 people of the top people in the business. And I work everywhere in between. So I can do both. I can pull it together myself. We did an editorial shoot the other day for the Guardian weekend magazine out of London. And it was like, my intern was out running around pulling together props for us, that's how you do it.
Right.
We had a 20-minute shoot and we did 4 shots. It was great. And the client was so pleased.
Now, my question of the day, all right, we've been talking about this one a lot. How do you get Governor George McGovern in a Speedo? That picture I keep going back to. It's a terrific picture. What's the story behind that?
So when we met him, he had a family rental in Virginia Beach. And we drove up there and he comes off the beach and shakes my hand and my assistant. And this is how he looked. He was dressed in a Speedo. He looked great, right? So he goes inside, he showers and shaves, puts on some regular clothes, casual, but, he's actually wearing regular clothes. And we do our shoot. But at some point when he was off, I said to my assistant, "Oh my God, he looks so amazing. I'd love to shoot him like that." And she's like, "Well, you should ask him." I don't know. I mean, it's just crazy. Would he ran for president. He's a legend. She's like, "Just ask." So I asked him and he said no. So we were shooting for Newsweek it was kind of a election year roundup in 96. It was, I guess it was that midterms? No, I guess it was when Clinton was running for re-election. And I said, "Look, I won't use it for Newsweek. I won't give it to them. It's for my portfolio." And he's like, "All right." And then, of course, I said, "Look, you looked amazing. You're in amazing shape. You look so handsome and confident." Everything I'd seen, right? And so he's like, "Well, okay." So he goes, and he puts the Speedo back on. He comes out. Now, I think he kind of, and maybe it was a bit of sleight of hand where the way I talked about him made him think we were going to shoot him on the beach. But when he was off changing, we set up the seamless in the living room of the cottage. And then, and one light, because I was learning how to light then. So someone told me, work with one light and that's how you'll learn.
That's right.
So I had one light right over camera and it was like a flash into an umbrella, I think. And shot against a gray seamless. And we shot 2 rolls. And he kind of came out and he's like, we're not going outside. I'm like, nope, we're doing this. And he's like, okay. And
His
we shot it.
expression's wonderful. I mean, he's just perfectly at ease.
There's some really
seemingly.
weird. There's some very weird shots we shot of that setup. I mean, you were trying to frame it like in the beginning, like I'm like some kind of assassin. If I wanted to make him look bad, there are so many frames in those contact sheets I could have chosen. I chose that one because it had the right balance of him looking delightful and positive and sweet, which he was. He was like totally great. He actually wrote me a letter for my green card when I was trying to get permanent status from Canada. I mean, he was amazing. He was like the sweetest guy. And so, yeah, I call that picture running.
Now,
for
by the way,
president.
we use the word assassin.
What do you call
that?
that? What do you call that picture?
Running for president.
Okay.
It's kind of, maybe that's kind of tough, but the name of the book is Uneasy, and a lot of the pictures, the subject seems to be in an uneasy place, and I'd say a lot of viewers probably get the same reaction. They're not feeling too easy about it. And by the way, I have to qualify this. It's an amazing book. I mean, it is a couple of hundred pages, and every time you turn the page,
Yeah, it's almost 400 pages.
there's more. There are so many photographs in there that individually and juxtaposed together are just really powerful.
Thank you.
This book is too much to take in one sitting. All right, it's extraordinary. And yeah, there's a lot of pictures in there that could be disturbing to look at depending on where your point of view is. And
That's fine, but I guess I don't really consider them unflattering. Like, you're right, they're awkward. I'm not saying every person wants to be depicted this way, and there's some people who probably don't like these pictures of themselves, and I'm okay with that. But it's not like I go in there looking to make people look bad. In fact, oftentimes if they look bad, it's too distracting from what I am getting at.
just like the cover photograph, for instance.
Right, but I had
Okay.
to get permission for the cover. So Joaquin Phoenix approved that picture.
Okay.
Like, so he that is one of the very few that I actually sought and got permission for.
Yeah, and he's an actor, and he understands that. I could see him approaching it from that point of view. As an actor, you assume other roles. You take
Sure.
over other
I
people's
think
lives.
also too, I mean, it was a great shoot. Like, it was one of the first shoots he ever did. And he was like, we got along great. Like, and I think, I think he remembers it because it's probably literally one of the first professional shoots he ever did.
Why is he on the cover, though? That's a question I had to ask. I wanted to wait till later, but we're here.
Sure. It's because when I was trying to figure out the cover, there was a lot of different angles to take, and covers are hard. Like, now that I've done a couple books, I evaluate the books I have, and I realize most of them have pretty terrible covers. But also, having done a couple, I think my covers are fine, but not great. Covers are tough because it needs to speak to what the book is about. It needs to frame, I mean, at least for the photographer, you're trying to frame people's understanding of what they're going to get into when they get into this book. For publishers, the cover is about selling
Selling
books,
the books,
which
right.
is a different thing. Now, I didn't want to have my best known or the most famous person on the cover. I actually don't like when they do that because in a way the book often is disappointing.
letdown, yeah.
I know that sounds kind of bad, but you see some like amazing picture of Madonna on the cover and you look through and all the rest are like fine. And I'm like, I like the Madonna picture. So
I didn't need to buy it, right?
I didn't want to have like my Steve Martin with the bread fingers on the cover or a handful of other pictures of mine that are, Billy Bob Thornton with the backdrop. I didn't want to have those pictures that are the best known of mine. I wanted something else. Part of the reason I chose Joaquin, I was sort of thinking about like who'd be the perfect subject. And Joaquin kept crossing my mind because the picture is older. It's 22 years old now, but it's of someone who's still relevant. And
right.
I like that it speaks to the narrative of this book is a retrospective, so it goes back in time, but the pictures are relevant to today. So having him speaks to that. It's both historical and timely.
Was this around To Die For? Is that fair?
Yes,
to say?
very
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, that was a great
And
intro to
also,
him.
he looks super uneasy in the picture, which reinforces the narrative of the title.
That's kind of what I
Exactly.
thought.
Yeah, and that's why it fits. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you wanted to use that close up of William Buckley as
That
a
was
cover.
one of the ones I considered.
Or
But
William F. Buckley. I remember him.
I mean, I love that picture. It's one of my favorites in the book. I think it's actually a better picture than the Joaquin one, which is not Joaquin's fault.
But it's
mine.
not the character of the rest of the book. It's actually a very different picture.
Yeah, it's super close
stylistically.
up.
Yeah,
and it's just super like especially if you use it really close up, like I was considering, it would make you be in a way. The book, I talked earlier about how I kind of execute with a light touch. I think That picture doesn't have that.
That has-
especially
yeah.
super close up with all the kind of blood vessels
faces
popping
kind
and
of-
stuff.
Yeah,
You'd be surprised the book isn't more macabre.
Also, I mean,
Yeah.
Joaquin will speak to a larger audience, not necessarily just because he's an actor, but is not as esoteric nowadays.
That's another
anyway.
reason I
And-
chose Joaquin is that if you put someone who's political on the cover, people think it's a politics
politics
book.
book,
If you
right.
put a music person, they think it's a music book.
Right.
By putting an actor, people connect actor with celebrity. It's like it feels more generic celebrity.
Right. Now you started this book with Kickstarter campaign, right? Or is that
I
another
had
book?
started that. I kind of ended with
Started
a
in-
Kickstarter campaign.
Oh, ended it with it.
Well,
okay.
in a sense, I've been trying to do this book. I actually found, I was kind of thinking, I gave a real go at it in about 2004. I really tried to get this book done, made mock-ups, went to publishers, worked with the design team, everything. And then didn't really go anywhere. And then I found records going back to 1999 of me doing outreach to doing like some kind of book of famous people. But anyways, when I came around to doing the book seriously, I did do a Kickstarter and it worked out great. I mean, doing a Kickstarter, especially for like a nice Canadian boy, it's a very intense kind of thing to do. Asking people for money, it feels sort of like not cool.
Not just
Yeah,
Canadians.
but Kickstarter is sort of you're a step away from. It's not like you're going over to somebody in person.
Well, I don't know. You make that video where you basically, most Kickstarter videos are someone looking at the camera saying, "Give me money."
Yeah, right.
And so I actually chose not to do that specific approach. I did do some talking, but I didn't.
It wasn't a direct hit for cash.
It wasn't. I had like a narrator who talked about how awesome I was.
Did any of the
which was
subjects
a lot easier.
Pony up?
Any
Yeah,
subjects?
any of the subjects in the book,
Judd
Tony?
Apatow supported the
nice.
Kickstarter. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. And I guess I don't know if you then you would consider this book self-published, but
My first book, it's called Presence. Presence, the Invisible Portrait. It's portraits of famous people where they're not visible.
right.
Great book too.
Thank you. I did that through KR Verlag in Germany, and it was a kind of a weird art book. And so I thought it was important to get published with a traditional publisher. And they're totally game and they're on board, but I had to give them a bunch of money to do it.
Right.
They call it quote unquote helping with production, which basically means you're taking away at least half the risk for them. So I gave them $20,000.
Wow.
It's a lot of money. So this new book, I told my wife, because I made no revenue in that first book. So I told my wife, I will not, this is a celebrity book. There's no way I'm paying money to some publisher to publish it.
Yeah.
So I make a really nice mock-up, send it out, work with a book agent guy, get a couple of interests in Europe, one in Italy, one in Germany. And the German ones, we go into long conversation and they want $32,000.
Wow.
And I was like, this is a book of celebrities covering 30 years. Like, seriously, like, you think it's that much of a risk or whatever? I mean, they wanted to, and they're gonna give me 1,000 books for that. And I'm like, well, then I'm in a position where I'm having to compete against you because at that point, I need to sell my books to make back my money, right?
Course, yeah.
So I'm now competing against you and selling the book. And also I'm getting zero revenue from whatever sales. So they're going to do 2,500 more and keep all the revenue. And I'm like, how is that a good deal for me? And also too, on top of that, I'd have to hire my own designer, all the scans, all the retouching. So basically I started my own company and self-published it. And the great thing about it is, I hired the designer. No one ever told the designer, you can't do that. Well, I did. But, no one else said, that's too expensive.
Right.
You can't do a tall vertical format like that. That's too expensive. Or, you're almost 400 pages. You got to get down to 300.
Which leads me to the next question. When did you say, okay, you know what, I'm just going to make it 400 pages and throw in all of these photos as opposed to the greatest hits?
With the designer, it was designed by Demo, DEMO, great team in Upper New York State. And so they arranged the printing through East Asia and all that, proofing, everything. And of course, they're designers, so they want top quality too, right? There's no point, I paid them, but not as much as they're worth. So they want it to be a great book too. So they were like making sure everything's right. They're guiding me on paper choices. Everything is amazing. But we did the edit together. Me and the designers did the edit. I did an initial edit on an iPad, which was great because I could be on an airplane flying to LA on a job and I'd be, sorting images. I initially just stored them literally in chronological order. And then I go through them. My largest edit, I think, was 551. This is down to 338.
Pictures or pages?
Pictures. Because there's more pages because there's stories at the back.
Now, going through editing process is not easy for any photographer. And I think it takes a long time before you could edit your own work fairly and accurately. And even then, you better ask some opinions from other people. Do you look at this book right now and have any second thoughts about what should be in there?
Of course I do.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Okay, how about, do you have a second thought about putting Obama next to a drooling Mac DeMarco?
Yeah.
Well, let me deal with this first question first. Because here's the thing. One of the things I had to decide for this book, anytime anyone makes a photo book, especially because it's me so much, even if you're not paying for it yourself, you're still going to be dedicating like at least a year of your time doing it. So you have to know why you're doing it. A lot of people do photo books because they want to, build their following, get lots of sales, become better known. I was doing it. I want all those things, of course. I want to get more work from advertising and an editorial. But the main reason I was doing it was for legacy. And you have to know why you're doing it and not cross signal, because otherwise you're going to be confused as to why you're doing things and be aiming towards different targets at the same time that are crossing each other. So my first reason for doing it was legacy. So I made a decision, if I'm going to do this book and be my book, it's not like anyone came to me and said, we want to do a book of your portraits. This is the artist stepping forward and saying, I'm doing a book. So I'm doing the body of work. I became a photographer to shoot famous people. It was what I was obsessed with popular culture. This is my body of work, covering 30 years of that obsession. So I didn't want to do it again. I didn't want Uneasy Part 2.
Yeah.
So this is going to be everything I think is worthwhile. Is every picture in here like an 8 or better? Of course not. But there are people who are important to have in there and it's worth having in.
The breadth.
This is the body of work that I've done in this area. And, obviously lots of pictures got cut out. I could probably, if you put me down and, shove bamboo under my fingernails, I could probably take out 10% of this.
Oh, sure.
But,
But why? You published it.
Yeah, what are you going to do, you know?
How many of the images were the ones that were then selected for the job you were doing? Is that clear, that question? Of the...
which ones are
the ones that were that were used for the job that you were shooting them for?
That's an interesting question. I should go back and do a count. Yeah. I never thought of that.
When you were doing your edit, did you have that in mind, which ones were selected, or was it basically which ones you liked?
Yeah, I never think about that. Here, things will happen, like the picture of Dolly the clone sheep.
Yeah.
That picture was the one the magazine ran as their opener.
I thought it was a copy. That was a joke.
Very good. And you're fast.
Sorry, I can't resist.
Perfectly inserted as well.
Your face is red.
That's why it's on video. It's good. So I'm open to being swayed. Look, the Steve Martin picture is still not my favorite. The Steve Martin picture is the only one in there where I have 2 pictures from the same session.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
That,
yeah. There's I think maybe a dozen people who are in the book twice, but they're in there because of maybe being single or part of a group, or maybe I shot them in the 80s and I shot them again in the aughts. But Steve Martin's the only one that's in there twice because the Steve Martin picture that became famous was not my favorite one. And I still like the other picture better. But
was it the bread photo that is this kind of a silly question, but did that make you? Is that why it's in there? Is that such a huge photo for your career?
It's big. It's certainly it's one of if people might bring up, say, a dozen different pictures referencing me, that's always one of the dozen. It's always one of the ones brought up. And I think it's kind of boring. It lacks any kind of edge. And not
but the thing is, it's a
edgy,
perfect capture of Steve Martin. That the way he's his expression looking up to the side, it's very Steve Martin. He was playing himself there.
That's why I don't like it, because it's not enough about me.
Ah, okay. I get it.
Good answer. So I wanted to ask you about shooting other photographers. That was kind of one of my main interests today, and specifically Cindy Sherman. Obviously, you have a whole list here: Elliot Erwitt, Joel Peter Witkin, Robert Frank in a bus. Can you talk about the Cindy Sherman, and if there's any, do you approach it differently with another photographer?
People ask me, why do you shoot photographers? And I'm like, it seems like such an obvious question or obvious answer, because, it's what I do. So to make a portrait of someone who is like, the icons of my chosen vocation.
It's the ultimate.
It's insane. It's like, and yeah, I get that the average person doesn't know who Elliot Erwitt is, but for me to photograph Elliot Erwitt and to like spend a couple hours with him making his portrait is insane. Like, it's amazing. He's a legend. He's like, he's so cool and weird himself. It's so great. I mean, yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, here's how it goes with photographers. In general, they don't like having their picture taken. They kind of, the cliche, I'm more comfortable behind the camera than in front of it. But once they agree, they know what you need and they give you what you need.
They get it. Yeah.
And so
they understand.
They give you some little thing like a gesture or they work with you, and they might even, it's weird, they'll even give you a little nugget of something that I can recognize. Well, like, this is it. This is the shot, because this is the thing they know is likely to work, and they know I can work it.
A gesture, a movement, or something of that sort.
Yeah, or they'll just suggest something, or they'll move into some light, or...
This takes us back to what you said about Steve Martin. Is it then a Chris Buck photo, or is it a Cindy Sherman photo? If they're giving you something.
I mean, I photographed Cindy a couple times, 3 times actually now, because she posed for the Present series as well. Cindy's amazing. I mean, she's been really helpful to me. Like, I've asked her for blurbs for my books, and she gives them to me. Like, don't tell her I said this, but I don't know why. I mean, she's so cool, and like, I'm, I genuflect in front of the goddess. I mean,
Were you nervous?
I mean, that's one of the most nerve-wracking shoots I ever did was when I photographed her, because she was so easygoing too, but she's kind of reserved and she's a little mysterious in that way. Like, not in any way like mean or difficult, just, like just normal, right? But not effusive. So I was just like, she probably thinks I'm such an idiot, or, whatever I'm thinking,
And the book that she has, was that her choice, your choice?
I brought that along.
You brought the book. Okay. All right.
But the thing is, I don't think my pictures of her are very good. Like, I wish I could shoot her again to get a better one. That's sort of what I was getting at, is that,
How about the Robert Frank one?
Oh boy. So I met Frank through my professor, Dave Heath, and him and Frank were good friends. So Dave died about a year ago. So him and Frank were very good friends. Frank came and spoke in Toronto. So I got introduced to him and kind of invited to like kind of a drinks out at the local pub with maybe like a half dozen of, friends of Heath's. And so I'm sitting next to Frank. And, at some point, everyone says what they do or whatever. And I say, I'm a portrait photographer. And he starts mocking me. And he's like, oh, are you going to have me pee in the snow or make snow angels? Or, kind of literally making fun of what I do and what kind of pictures I make. Hasn't seen any of my work. Doesn't matter, though. And I look at him and I'm like, you can't talk to me that way. No, I'm not saying that, but I'm thinking this. And I argued with him like, you haven't seen my pictures. What are you commenting on? Also, there's that picture of you with, by Richard Avedon with your dog in Nova Scotia. Like, you pose for portrait photographers. Oh, well, Richard showed up, and what am I going to do? And I'm like, don't, whine to me. Like, why are you talking to me like this? I can't believe this. But I was telling someone the story, like, well, did you still photograph him? Like, of course I photographed him. Like, I'm a photographer. I make pictures. Like, I can argue with him until the cows come home. But if he's going to sit for me, I'm totally going to take it.
And on a bus? How'd that?
Well, on the bus, because of that classic cover
of his book in New
of the
Orleans.
Americans with the kid looking out the window. I'm like, because we go outside this pub, and there's a school bus, but it's like kind of being used for tourism or whatever. And I'm like, as a photographer, you just have to have no scruples. I just knock on the door. I'm like, can we come on and take a picture? So I just come on, there with Robert Frank sitting next to this, woman who's doing a tour of Toronto or whatever. And she's just looking over at him like, why is this guy getting his picture taken? And Frank is just like, get this over with. I shot like a roll and that was it.
How about shooting Canadians? Do you get called a lot for that? Or is that those self-assigned? Is there anything different going on when you shoot Canadians?
That's a great question. I mean, I shot a lot of Canadians, of course, when I was in Canada. Right. They tend to congregate there. But
so we've heard.
There's definitely like a little kinship there, sure. But if anything, like kinship is an enemy of a photographer. I mean, you want, I don't know, it's a little dance you do with the subject where you want them to be comfortable enough to invite you into the intimacy that is a photograph, but not so comfortable that when you ask them to do something, they feel they can say no. You know, you're kind of you want them to respect your authority.
Yeah.
So when you say, you know, I want you to go down on your knees and, you know, and then have your hands in the air, they'll just do it and not question you. I haven't done that shot though. It's a great idea.
Yeah, you have to keep your guard up. You have to be.
There needs to be a balance of like friendliness and authority.
Yeah, that's a good point. Speaking of Canadians, Leonard Cohen there's a great photo in here of him, but to me it's one of, maybe this is not the right phrase, but it's almost straightforward. Is that, how are you when you're shooting somebody who you have the utmost respect for?
Well, Leonard Cohen, I have to say, like so I'm a big fan. Like, you know, he's one of my favorite people I've ever photographed because I was a fan. I mean, when I went to go photograph him, it was in LA. It's actually the same trip as the Billy Bob Thornton. And I had one of his CDs in my car, you know, like I was such a fan. My favorite album by him, which is Songs of Love and Hate. And so we went to go in to shoot him, me and my assistant, and he's like hunched over the stove, and I think he's like frying an egg or something. And he's like got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth.
To his house?
He reminded me of Humphrey Bogart. You know, he's kind of short. He's kind of hunched over. He's literally got a hunched back. He's got the cigarette in his mouth. And I think he might even had a fedora on. He's like, "Hey boys, how you doing? You want some breakfast?" Well, no, we're good, thank you, sir. No, we're good, thank you. And so we did a shoot. You know, we had 2 hours with him. And at the end of the shoot, he made us lunch. And it was like amazing. He was like, "I went to the deli today, and the chopped chicken liver is really good. So you guys, if you open that, you should try it." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna say no to Leonard Cohen. Like, I'll eat anything,
So you talked about Leonard Cohen. You were out shooting Billy Bob Thornton. Was that something you had planned? You said, "Okay, I'm here. I'm going to do that." They were both
I was
totally
doing
separate.
Billy Bob, and I was doing another shoot at the same time. And this client called me, and he's like, "I have a shoot. If you're interested." And I was like, "I already have 2 shoots. I'm only here for 5 days or whatever." And he's like, "Well, it's Leonard Cohen."
Right.
I'm like, "I'm pulling the car over."
Right.
Let's start talking.
Do you still sell, other than your personal projects, do you try to self-assign celebrity work?
It really rarely. Like occasionally I'll write a letter to someone or do a reach out. It doesn't really usually lead to much. I mean, unless there's a real reason. If I can get it through a magazine, it's much more likely to happen. The fact is that, people look at my work, especially people who are photographers and like what I do, and they're like, "Well, who wouldn't want to be photographed by Chris Buck?" And I'm like, pretty much anyone. Like, they're not doing it because of me. They're doing it because it's for GQ or for The Guardian. Like, they're not there for me.
Right.
Who do you want to photograph that you haven't? I mean, just because you just think it would be a challenge or a hoot or whatever.
For some reason, when I'm thinking of people I'd like to shoot, I can't help but always think of people who are much, much older, like people whose greatest work was maybe even before my time. I think of like Ennio Morricone. I love his work. I just think it's so beautiful and weird. And, and also he's kind of reclusive. You don't really see a lot of pictures of him. So there's something about those kind of people that I'm always drawn to, the kind of legends who are kind of semi-reclusive. And the people who like have just died, of course. I'm like, "Oh, Carrie Fisher, it would have been so awesome to have shot her."
Yeah. The cover of the book is also a poster. Why? And
okay, so you work with a designer, and they have crazy ideas,
that was one.
and you shoot down some of them, and some of them you have to let through. That was an idea they had. They're obsessed. What we wanted to do, and their idea was to have a poster that when it folded as a dust jacket, a part of the poster, like a detail of the poster, would be the cover. So you'd kind of undo it and it become the poster. We just couldn't figure out a way to do that because it ended up making pictures too close up, like the Buckley one we talked about earlier. So what happened was the compromise was that we'd have a traditional cover, and we have there's interviews with me, there's excerpts from interviews with me from different parts of my career on the dust jacket, and then the back of it is the poster. Originally, what they pitched, and I thought it was a great idea, but they want to have all the stories. So there's 129 stories behind the shoots in the back of the book,
which is a great aspect of this book.
They want to have that on the back of the dust jacket, which I thought was brilliant because it was just so sort of weird. But my wife was like, the stories are great. Like, for a photographer, you're a good writer. This is going to sell your book. You need to have it in because people are going to take the dust jacket off, then they're going to lose it, and then they won't have the stories, or people won't even see it when they go to buy it. They won't even see the stories. Right. So she's like, the stories need to be in the physical book.
She was right.
Yeah, and by the way, that's an important thing to note, that it's not just a photographic book. There are great stories and essays in there, and it's very, very entertaining. If anything, they go hand in hand. It's a total package, and that's what makes the book that much more powerful.
Absolutely.
Really, really is. Anyway, this has been an amazing hour or so. Chris Buck, thank you so much for stopping in and joining us today. Well, needless to say, we love your work here, and it's been great talking to you and learning a little bit more about it. If people would like to see more of your work, where should they go?
ChrisBuck.com.
That's what I thought. That works.
And the
Okay.
book?
And of course, my Instagram. Which is the Chris Buck with underscore between each word.
And I love the idea of Chris Bucks.
That's coming up soon.
That's a great one. The best place to find the book is through the website or
I'd
Amazon?
say
or
Amazon's the easiest way.
Okay, great.
I don't
All
want
right.
to drive more business there, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Okay, one fast note. We got an email from a Mr. Henry O'Brien. Thank you, Henry. And his idea was to talk about local photography clubs and organizations, and we are encouraging you to write us at podcast@bhphoto.com with your favorite local photo club or organization, and we'll see what we can do about that. And if anybody else has ideas, drop us a line.
Particularly overseas.
Particularly overseas. We'd love to hear from you. It's a big world out there. Let's make it a little bit smaller. That said, on behalf of Chris Buck, Jason Tables, John Harris, and myself, thank you so much for joining us today.